episode 140, Grow Your Impact. Welcome to Gratitude Geek, the relationship marketing podcast helping micropreneurs find your micro influencer magic. I'm your host, Candice Rodarty, and this week I'm joined by thought leadership strategist Jason Van Orden. Jason helps consultants, coaches, and authors turn their expertise into online courses and group programs so they can help more people and generate more income. Jason draws from more than 18 years of experience, including creating multiple successful brands, launching over 60 online courses, teaching more than 10,000 entrepreneurs, earning 7 figures in online course sales, and generating 8 million downloads of his podcasts. His mission is to help visionaries with impactful ideas to connect with the people they serve best and the problems they can most uniquely solve. Welcome, Jason. Those are some numbers. Those are some numbers.
Thanks, Candice.
So tell us your unique story. How'd you get to where you are? How'd you make all those numbers happen?
How did I make it happen? Yeah, I like sharing my story, not because it's about me, but because it's an example of how it's often difficult to see where you will end up, but you can always look back at the breadcrumbs and how moving forward in action and experimenting along the way can lead to things you never would have thought of before. So my story starts when I was an engineer for 3 years after graduating from college, and very quickly figured out, I'm not meant to be employed by other people. It just does not make me happy. It's not enough freedom, not enough, of my own ideas in action. And so in 2003, I struck out on my own, really unclear actually about which direction I was going, but I quit my job cold turkey and dove into real estate investing at the time, which in hindsight wasn't a great fit for my strengths and interests and things like that. However, it was one of the breadcrumbs. I ended up consulting a lot of my real estate investing friends on marketing because they realized, well, Jason knows some things about marketing. You might be wondering, well, how does an engineer learn about marketing? Turns out that at the same time as being a software engineer, I was also a very serious musician. I had a band. I was like, we're gonna make it. Like, we were making CDs and we were doing shows, and I had to figure out how to market the band. And so I was just devouring all the marketing stuff I could in the late 90s, early 2000s, because I want to sell CDs. I want to book my shows. And that's how I learned. I was interested in marketing and actually pretty decent at it. So in 2003, in real estate investing, I'm working with these buyers and sellers. I'm helping these real estate investors find buyers and sellers through direct marketing. And that led to this idea of like, well, what if I did a seminar? I was doing some one-on-one consulting, but what if I did like a workshop where everyone showed up for a day and I did a crash course on it? Here's some good direct marketing principles for real estate investors. And I had learned enough by then, I'd kind of been introduced to the world of what was referred to at the time as information marketing. And so I knew enough to record that workshop so I would have a product potentially I could sell. So I recorded the audio of those 8 hours on CD, and I printed out my slides and notes and things as a 3-ring binder. I was like, I've got this product now that I can sell. And it was a really key moment in my journey. I got 83, or I got a mailing list. It was a direct mail through snail mail list of 83 people that I promoted to, got 25 people there, and in total made over $8,000 teaching. And that was just like, ding, 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 ding. That's amazing. Like, I love teaching, and here's a way that I can teach and make money that feels good and still have some good freedom. But I'd already decided going in academia is not for me, because that's just going to be more bureaucracy and organizations that aren't going to make me happy, right? So there I was with this product. I'm like, great. And I start selling it locally. And eventually I'm like, I got to go to the internet. I got to find more people to sell this thing to. So now we're looking about 2004. There's no YouTube. There's no social media. I was basically posting on forums about real estate investing and mentioning wherever I could in my byline or whatever that I had a course, and I'd sell some copies of it. And at the beginning of 2005, in my search for like, how do I market this course, the word podcasting shows up in a newsletter that I was subscribed to. So January 2005, podcasting. I'm like, okay, never heard this word before. Let's check it out. So I Google Google tries to correct me. He's like, did you mean fly casting? Because Google didn't know what podcasting was yet. It's like, no, not a fisherman. I'm looking for podcasting. And eventually found some very geeky blog posts about what podcasting was. This is back when it was just a new thing, a new unrefined technology. There's no podcasting in iTunes. As many people don't realize, Apple actually did not invent podcasting. It was other people. So it was just brand new thing. Well, another big light bulb went off for me. This is another big breadcrumb. The tech engineer in me understood the technology of podcasting. The marketer in me is like, oh, there's something interesting here as a marketing medium and as a way to get your business out there and teach. And I understood as a musician how to do the recording and things like that. So I was like, this is actually pretty interesting to me. And so, over the next several months, I was kind of like researching and thinking about podcasting and eventually decided, you know what, I think this feels like a good fit for me. I'm going to see if I can make myself the business podcasting expert. And so I launched a tutorial site and I was like, there's no good, like in really easy terms, tutorial about A to Z, how to launch your own podcast. And so that's what I put up online. And Google actually now picked it up, I guess, figuring out people are searching for podcasting. Is like picked up this site, listed it, and I started getting a lot of traffic. And that led to a book deal. And that led to speaking internationally at different conferences about the business of podcasting. Well, about that same time, I started a couple podcasts, as you can imagine. And one of them in 2005 with a friend of mine was the first podcast ever about internet marketing and online business. And we were just two guys. He was making money on eBay. I was selling my course and now doing these podcasting courses and tutorial, and consulting, stuff like that. So we're just talking about like, here's how we escaped the 9 to 5 and how you might be able to do that too. Well, fast forward a couple of years, and next thing we knew, we had a top 10 business show and an audience who were asking us, how do you teach this stuff? The show's great, but do you have coaching? Do you have a course? And we're like, oh, that's a good idea. We should launch a course. We should do some coaching. So we put a couple offers out there and started monetizing our podcast. And very quickly, this show turned into my primary pursuit. It became a successful educational company for entrepreneurs who were just starting out, fresh, new, people like me a few years before who were looking to like maybe get out of their job and strike out on a new path. And so fast forward a decade and, had launched dozens and dozens of courses, helped a lot of other people launch their brands and courses. About 6 years ago, it was time for a change. As many entrepreneurs, you just start getting a little antsy. You're like, I need something a little different now. And I decided to step away from that business, as successful as it was. And I just like, I need different challenges, different things to keep me interested. And bit by bit, that started leading to what I do now. I shifted to working with an audience of, rather than beginning entrepreneurs, I decided, I want to work with established experts who have a really meaningful message that they want to get out there. They've got an expertise that could help a lot of people. And I want to help them know how to reach the people that they can best serve. And so I started applying all of my experience as a digital marketer, as a branding expert, as somebody who had taught courses online, and started helping coaches and consultants to expand their reach, their impact, their income, and decided to focus in on online courses. Because when you help somebody, kind of like writing a book, when you help somebody create an online course, it really helps focus. We might get into this some more, but really helps focus who their audience is, what it is that they offer that's best, what their methodology is that sets them apart from other people out there and gives them a new stream of income. And so here I am 6 years later, helping all kinds of experts, so authors, consultants, coaches, particularly at that moment where they're feeling kind of limited. Maybe they're a little burned out on one-to-one. Maybe they're maxed out on how many one-to-one clients they can take. Maybe they just want a new way of serving people. And so that's where I come in and go, okay, you know what? We're going to evolve your business to the next level. We're going to add highly leveraged income streams that leverage your time better, online courses and group programs, and expand your marketing and your platform for visibility as well. And so that's the path from A to Z of how I got to what I'm doing now. But I love it and just strive every day to make the absolute best frameworks there are for a business that is based on somebody's thought leadership and somebody who really wants to reach and impact others.
Everything that you just said comes down to this. Everybody listening to this is an expert in something. And if you aren't capitalizing on the thing that you know how to do best, you're going to be miserable. unless that thing that you know how to do best makes you miserable. I don't know. I don't know.
Which is probably not likely in my experience.
Yeah.
Usually the things that we're good at actually bring us a lot of joy.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's a problem that a lot of coaches have is that they try to reach a too broad of an audience, right? They want to
Yeah,
help
totally.
everybody because they think if they help everybody, they'll have more clients. But if the narrower you niche it down, the better. Yesterday, I offer a free class on Thursdays, a free DIY marketing class on Thursdays, and a new person showed up to the class, and her niche was airline related companies. And I'm like, oh
Huh.
my gosh, that's such a good niche because there aren't that many of those in the
So
world,
specific.
right?
Right.
I love that niche. Uh, and it's just and so narrow. And when your niche is that narrow, you can really target with it.
Mhm.
So I
Totally.
love what you do. I love that you take this whatever the genius is, the thought leadership is that someone has, and you turn it into other ways to monetize. So, but before we get into talking about launching and creating courses, I want to backtrack to the podcasting
Sure.
because the number one question I receive as a podcaster is, well, how do you podcast?
Mm.
And I started this thing in 2013 or 14. I think it was 14, somewhere like that.
Yeah.
And so the way that I do my show is the way that Cliff Ravenscraft taught me in
Oh
his
yeah,
free
Cliff.
courses.
That's great.
In his free online course that he offered back then. But he doesn't
Wonderful.
offer that course anymore. And I don't know where to direct people to go. So, since we're
Mm.
talking about podcasting, and I know you're not doing it anymore, but if somebody asks me, the next time somebody asks me, Candace, how do you podcast? Who do I refer them to?
You know, I actually am surprised. I mean, I know a lot of podcast production people, so you know, you pay amount of money and they kind of just do a lot of it for you. Um,
Which is a great niche, but there are folks that want to do it
right.
themselves.
There are folks who are a little bit more, you know, do it yourself and want to learn the ropes. I'm a little out of touch of who the latest, I mean, there's so many of them now, the latest podcast educators are. However, you know, I'm a big fan of like podcast movement, the event, right? And so, you know, if you follow that event and attend that event, you're going to definitely be able to very quickly like steep yourself in the podcasting world and start finding the connections and resources that you need. But I wish I had the tutorial site that I created is no longer around because it got to a point where I had other business pursuits and I couldn't update it anymore. I'm like, okay, this is no longer serving people as it needs to. I need to like
Well,
do
what you,
something with it. Actually, at one point, well, I won't say who it was, I guess, just to be sure. But anyway, a very well-known business podcaster approached me about buying the website, and for whatever reason I didn't sell it at the time. I thought I was going to do something with it. It turns out it just doesn't exist anymore.
oh,
So
that's too
um
bad.
yeah, so I don't have a really specific good answer for you, sadly.
Well, and I think it's the whole podcasting sphere is so dynamic. I mean, every year there's a new way to do podcasting. I don't think all of them are great. I'm so old school that I host on Libsyn. I know that's really old school.
Yeah, Libsyn's a great company. I hosted that podcast I talked about that I was for 10, 11 years. It was hosted on Libsyn.
Yeah, and there's nothing anybody could say that would make me change, would pull me away, right? So
Yeah, they're a great service.
it's 2022, so it's 8 or 9 years that my content has been living on that platform.
Right.
So, and I didn't podcast for 3 or 4 years because I was going through metastatic breast cancer treatment, and I just stopped podcasting, even though it probably would, if I had podcasted while I was doing all that, it would have made me happy. You know what I'm saying? Because
Mm,
it's the thing that I love. If you ask me if I could do
right.
anything for a living, what would I do? I would podcast. But you know,
Yeah.
it's there. You have to be like in the top. You have to be a Jason Van Orden level podcaster to actually make money at it. The rest of us are doing it for love.
Well, maybe. I mean, we could talk about that some too. I think there's a lot of interesting ways to make to monetize a podcast. And if you've got, 1,000 solid listeners to your podcast, you can definitely get a good business going. I mean, I will say, I don't remember how many listeners we had when we started really monetizing Internet Business Mastery. That was the name of the podcast I launched in 2005. But I do know that even with an email list of just like 3,000 people, it was a six-figure business. So, you know, just need a group of really solid fans and off you go.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. Good, solid fans. So you got to be bringing them content that they appreciate and that they want to pay you for.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay, let's talk about courses. So I have been so yeah, this is my show. It's all about me, right? Me. So I was a Toastmaster many years ago, and I learned through Toastmasters to always record my speeches. Right? I because then I could watch them back and get better, right?
Right.
Um, and so I started recording them. I started putting them out on YouTube. Sometimes I would just turn on the camera and start talking into the camera. This was all when I was going through the cancer thing, and I just start talking
Mhm.
in the camera, and I pretty much learned that message of how much it sucked to go through cancer treatment, but here's some hope that goes along with it. Would be attractive, and so I have breast cancer related videos that are just me with my crappy looking office behind me talking about what happened to me that
Right.
day, right? And those
Right.
videos have tens of thousands of views, and then
Mm.
the more productive, the things that I've produced and that I want to monetize, that I want to capitalize on, not get nowhere near. And I
Right.
think it has something to do with authenticity. But so
Absolutely.
because of my personality, it's really difficult for me to imagine myself doing a produced online course because I'm more
Mm.
of a workshop kind of person. I do weekly workshops. People come to a workshop. It's very interactive. We do a lot of laughing and talking and learning, right? And I can't imagine turning that into a course. And so I've been very resistant to the idea of doing courses because of my personality type. So your job for the next half an hour is to explain why I have a bad mindset about courses. How
Actually,
do you
I
like
have
that
no
challenge,
answer.
Jason?
No, I know. I actually have no answer for you because here's the thing: is like I because what I help a lot of my clients launch group programs that are run live with cohorts, and I'm actually a big fan of that style of learning. And if that's if that is where you thrive and create value the most, then totally. And here's the thing: is one of there was a few different things that I determined when I left that business, and it felt like something's missing. There's some time for something new. One of the things that I realized is that business we had built as like all of it was digital courses with like the funnels and everything was automated, and it was built as a lifestyle business. I mean, towards the end of my tenure in that business, I was living in Paris, France, while it made money, allowing me to live abroad. But what I will say is that one of the things I found that was missing for me is I wanted to be in there working more directly with people. So actually my courses are all run as something called flipped classroom. So maybe this is where I have something to present to you potentially.
Aha.
So flipped
This
classroom.
is a concept I've never heard. I'm so excited. Teach me something.
So flipped classroom is where people they go through the materials and information on their own. So you could say what some people call asynchronously. So it's not at the same time as everyone else. Like, so when somebody joins, like say, I have a 10-week workshop called Launch Your Course. So from scratch to launching a pilot and filling it. And they go through each module by logging into my hub, watching a set of videos. I've got worksheets and tools and stuff that they go through. And then we meet up on a live call that I do through Zoom. And that's where we're like, they're asking questions and we're masterminding together and they're sharing what was challenging for them. And somebody else might chime in and share their experience. And I'm sure that's one of the things you love about the program that you run is like it's so great to create that space where people can help each other, not just me offering the advice. So I do plenty of that as well. So the reason why I love that model is for a couple of reasons. For one, there's good research that shows there's actually better outcomes in learning retention and people actually getting through the course with that type of approach to things. That's not to say every single course should be a group, program with flipped classroom, but when I say I help people launch online courses, I see that as there's a whole spectrum, everything from the do-it-yourself online to much more like all these hybrid options. But the key thing that I think is important is to find a way to leverage your time, meaning for every hour you put in, you hopefully can maximize how many people you help and how much money you can make. And the cool thing about having it not just be taught live, where there is the digital course to facilitate, is I use all those digital videos with my one-on-one clients. As soon as I finish that digital library of training that I use in the workshop, my one-on-one engagements got a lot easier because I wasn't repeating the same things over and over and over again on the live calls. And in fact, on the live calls with clients, we get to go deeper on things that are really hanging them up or important to them, or really strategize because I've just said, hey, go through these 3 videos, fill out this worksheet, send it to me, I'll look it over, and then let's meet. And then we can really get into, looking that over and answering your questions and okay, what's next based on that. So I'm actually not going to convince you to just go do a digital course, because it's not necessarily, the right thing for you. There might be some people where it's like, yeah, having that purely digital course makes sense for their business model and their lifestyle and their strengths and their vision and mission and all those, and the audience that they serve, right? You got to consider the audience as well. One example I give is like, look, I took, so I'm 46 right now. A few years ago, at the age of 42, I found out I've got ADHD, and that's something, I've had my whole life, just never realized that I had it. Explains so much about me.
Okay. I'm 52 and I recently figured out that I have ADHD too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they just didn't know enough when we were kids to identify all of it, right? It's like, we thought it was just the hyperactive kids that had ADHD, and that's not how I presented. But the reason I bring that up as an example is that, I was an adult who was immediately like, I need to learn more about ADHD and get some support with this, right? And so I found a coaching program, a group course, but it was held live. In fact, we met like 3 times a week. It was pretty intensive. A digital course is not going to work for that audience. You're not going to get a bunch of adults with ADHD to go through a digital course on their own. So, it's like you consider the audience, you consider all the factors. So what you're doing might be the absolute perfect thing. And I don't know, maybe you listen to what I just said and go, yeah, okay, I could have this library of trainings or videos or modules or lessons or whatever that supplement that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be creating a purely digital course.
Well, my mind is blown when you said that, because I think the reason why I'm resistant to courses is because of the ADHD, which online courses don't appeal to me because I don't have the patience to sit and go through them.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the trick is, at least for me, has been to learn to listen to them at like 2 to 2.5 times speed. So I've trained my brain, and it helps a lot. In fact, I'm really frustrated if there's no ability in the course, hub or whatever, wherever I'm accessing the course or on the app. If I can't speed it up, I'm like, I'm never making it through this thing. I'm not going to get there.
Okay. So let's figure out how to direct the listener who's thinking about doing a course or a group coaching program right now, who that's something that they've been thinking about doing, but they've been resistant to it. Let's figure out a way to lead them in the right direction to how it would work best for them. And the thing that I'm hearing is that your audience will dictate part of that, and your style will dictate part of that. So
totally, yes.
Unpack it.
Yeah. So there are 4 pieces to a profitable and impactful online course. And we start with these 2 vital essentials. A lot of times, like I'll get asked all the time, Jason, what do you think of like a course on yoga online? Would that make money? Or, hey, I'm a digital photographer, I'm going to make a course. Do you think that would be good? And it's like, first of all, it's the wrong approach. To think about it as a topic that you're teaching or whatever. It's like, you need to know, like, who is this for? And we've already talked a little bit about niching and how important that is. So it's like, who is this person? What are they experiencing? Where are they right now? Where do they want to be? What's this gap that's holding them back from where they're going? And have you identified a problem, an unfulfilled goal, a pain, a desired transformation that has eluded them for whatever reason, but that they still, it's still a top of mind thing that they're actively, or at least like, it's top of mind enough that they've got their radar up for support, for guidance, a system to get them to where they want to go. So identify who that person is. Number 1 is absolute most important. Number 2 is, okay, what outcomes is the course going to give them? We're not even talking about, this isn't a yoga course. This isn't a digital photography course. I'll give you an example. It might be, no, this is a course for helping people who are, I'll say, of course, as you get to our age, right, and you start realizing, oh, my body isn't as limber and things aren't as easy as they used to be, right? So yoga course for people who are 40, 45 plus, middle to later age, and they want to stay flexible and and keep their body moving so that they don't just continue to atrophy and find themselves in their 60s and 70s just going like, oh my gosh, I'm just like stiff joints, and right, like that's a specific outcome. Like, or you could have a yoga course for mindfulness and stress relief, right? So they're both yoga courses, different audiences, different outcomes. So your ideal audience, so who do you really want to serve? Who do you have access to? Who do you feel like you understand? Who would you love to figure out how you can better help them? And then figure out, well, what are the outcomes that they are looking for? Transformations, relief from pains, fundamental human needs that they need having help fulfilled, like security and belonging and things like that. So this is what we're looking for. So those are the two absolute most important things. And if you can nail those down, you're already well on your way to having an offer. Well, the third piece that you need is a signature process. So if you picture your person standing over here, and they're on one side of this vast chasm, okay, and they're over here, and it's kind of dreary, and it's a place they don't want to be much. They're not very happy there. There's probably rain clouds, and it's coming down, and they're like, "This isn't the state I want to be in. There's another. I want a different future for myself, right?" And it's over here, and they could probably describe what that is and why it's important to them, but for whatever reason, they haven't gotten there yet. And that's why there's this gap. So there's just this deep, let's say, this deep chasm. You like throw a stone down and it just goes and goes and goes and goes and disappears, and it never hits the bottom, right? Well, what does that chasm consist of? Like, what are the risks, the knowledge gaps, the fears, the mindset shift? What are the reasons for which they've not managed to get to this future that they want? And so what you have is some kind of bridge that's going to get them across that chasm. And this is what I call your signature process. And that's the third piece. And I love working with coaches and consultants who are already helping people and getting results, because whether you've sat down and formalized it or not, you have some kind of process. And it's a combination of your experience and your knowledge and your strengths and your values, and you're maybe combining different ideas. And it's like, yeah, when I sit down to help somebody go from here to here, these are the kinds of steps that as a coach or consultant, I take them through to get them there. Well, I help my clients to really formalize that into a thing where it's like, no, this is your own branded process that nobody else has. If we think of this as a bridge that goes across, well, we've all crossed lots of bridges that look the same, right? Nobody wants to be the coach or consultant who's like everyone else with a bridge that looks like everyone else. We want to build the Brooklyn Bridge. We want to build the Golden Gate Bridge. There's only one of those, right? That's your signature process. And so it's like pulling out your unique genius to create this process. Now, that process can be delivered in a number of ways. You're probably already using a version of it to help people one-on-one, but we can encapsulate it in a different experience in order to create a new offer. And that's the fourth piece, is what is the experience you're going to use to deliver that process? And I separate these two things because the process on its own is this huge asset that you have. You can cut it up and slice and dice it or package it differently to have different offers. You can take a piece of it to have like an introductory course. You can take a piece of it to do a workshop somewhere. You might take the beginning of it, and that's an assessment that you use for marketing, or you deliver it as a coaching course and that's the whole thing, or you use it with your one-on-one clients. It's all the same process or pieces of the same process, just delivered different ways. So an experience, like I said, you don't have to do a digital course. Well, that's one type of experience. Another type of experience is you do it for them. Another type of experience is you do it along with them. Another type of experience is it's a group. We get a lot of people together in a group to support and help each other through the process. So the three questions you're asking when it comes to experience is, how do they get access to you, if any, and support from you? How do they get access to each other as a community or a mastermind or a support group of some sort? And then how do they get access to the information? Is it taught live over Zoom? Is it a digital library of stuff that they go through? Is it a digital course that they go through on their own? And there isn't any access to you or other people, which is also a valid decision too. So who is the ideal student that you want to help? What are the outcomes, the highly desirable outcomes that they are actively looking for help with, that you can help them to reach? What's your signature process for getting them there? And then we formalize that and turn it into the modules and lessons, the curriculum of your course that can be used in a variety of ways. And what's the experience through which you're going to deliver that signature process and guide them to the outcomes that they want? So those are the four pieces of designing a profitable and impactful online course, and the things you should be thinking about if you're thinking, yeah, I really would like to add something like this to my business model.
And all of that is very doable for just about anything. So
absolutely,
you were talking about bridges, and you've got the Brooklyn Bridge and the Golden Gate Bridge. Well, I grew up in when I was little, I lived in Gig Harbor, Washington, which is on the other side of the Narrows Bridge from Tacoma, Washington. And the Narrows Bridge is the bridge that completely collapsed a couple of years after it was built.
Oh
A
boy.
windstorm went through and the bridge just collapsed. I mean, it did one of these things, and then Galloping Gertie was the nickname for the bridge.
Oh
So the
boy.
bridge completely collapsed. They tore it down and it collapsed, and they built a brand new bridge.
Wow.
So the reason why I share that story is because sometimes you don't get it right the first time, right?
Right.
And so build another bridge.
Well, so this brings up a good point. Like I enjoy working with people who've already been doing some coaching and consulting and getting people results. Because if you have at least a pretty decent idea of who you work with best and how to get them results, you're in a great spot to consider repackaging as a different type of course or program, as opposed to somebody who's just starting out brand new, wants to be an entrepreneur or wants to, whatever motivation they have for creating a course. What I would tell them is like, okay, go out and find a client and get them some results, and then go find another client and get them results, and kind of figure out what are the outcomes and who is your ideal person and what is your process. You need to have some inkling of those things in order to be ready to make a solid course, to package it in a new way. And so like, you don't want to build a bridge that then doesn't actually get people to the other side. It ends up collapsing at some point, right? Which that can happen when you haven't tested what it is that you do. And so a lot of people say, hey, Jason, when am I ready to launch an online course? I say, well, if you're already getting results for an audience that you have a pretty good idea that that's your ideal audience, you're in a good spot. And now, if you're in a place where you're wondering like, man, there are other ways I can serve more people, or man, I'm maxed out on the number of clients I can serve, or I'm burned out on doing one-on-one all the time and I need some different ways to serve my audience. It's like, okay, these are the criteria to look at to go like, okay, it's time to build a bridge. It's time to create that course. If those things aren't true for you, it's like, okay, great. Go find those clients and get some success stories, and then come back and be ready to evolve your business model using new types of offers like group programs and online courses.
But if your bridge collapses, build another bridge if it's something that you're really passionate about. I like
Yeah, yeah, right.
I
Yeah.
like
Well, and here's the thing. It's like a bridge, I guess this is where the metaphor breaks down a little bit, because obviously a bridge fails, it collapses and big problems,
Yeah.
right? But I'm a big fan of you don't have to have the perfect process in order to create a course, because I guide my clients to do a pilot first. It's like, let's sell it before you create it. Let's get some people in a room. Let's take them through the process together. Let's make sure it's something people want, and use kind of a collaborative, iterative process to refine your course. So your process and the outcomes and the messaging in order to, and so that's why, look, if you're spending 6 months creating a course before you bring it to market, you're not doing it the right way. You need to get it to market as quickly as possible, test it out, and then improve the bridge as you go, right?
Yeah.
Which you can't really do with
reinforce it. Reinforce it.
Reinforce it, right? I guess maybe had they realized that there was I don't know. As a former engineer, I don't know. I guess there are a couple things I can imagine. There's things that can happen with resonances with wind or whatever, and you realize this isn't going to last long. It's like, okay, you change the bridge, you improve it based on on what you find out.
As an engineer, you should probably Google it, because it's a really interesting story. I don't remember all the details. It's been a long time since I've um, heard the story about Galloping Gertie, but it's a really interesting. I mean, because this was a revolutionary bridge. It looked like the Golden Gate Bridge, except it was green. It was a suspension bridge. It was a really interesting story.
Yeah.
But I'm going down a rabbit hole with that. But
I'll
yeah,
remember that. I'll have to
as
look
an
it up.
engineer, I want you to go look up the story, Galloping Gertie, the Narrows Bridge. And
Okay,
I also,
great.
before I forget, I wanted to make a snarky comment, because you were an engineer for 3 years and then you went on and did something completely different. I have a friend named Ryan, and Ryan was an engineer for 20 years, and he got so sick of it that he quit everything and walked away, and he lives in Aspen. He's been living in Aspen, and he's a ski lift operator. He
Nice.
just walked away from everything. He said, I'm done with this. I'm going to leave you a ski lift operator. So, sometime, and he's happy as peaches. So,
Great. If he's happy, that's wonderful.
and it's amazing. Because you look like you're extremely happy with the life that you live. You have a happy face, you just look very content with your life.
I mean,
Yes.
I have my hard moments too, but yeah, there is plenty to like about the life I've created.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, I want to talk about gems because the reason why you're on my radar is because my friend Robbie Samuels,
Mhm.
who I met when we both attended a mastery mastermind with Liz Scully, which is
Okay,
Mastery
yeah,
Mastermind is a coaching program that teaches, which is that coaching program worked really well for me because it was interactive. It wasn't a course.
yeah, right.
Anyway, Robbie and I met each other through that course, and Robbie introduced me to you. And he introduced me to you through your GEMS networking event. So talk to me about that because I love it was one of the most fun networking events I've ever attended. So talk to
Well,
me about it.
I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, so these are monthly networking events that a friend of mine and I, Michael Roderick, we started a couple of years ago in the middle of COVID. We'd been good friends, wanted a project together, also wanted a way to keep in touch with people in the middle of the pandemic when it wasn't sure, it wasn't clear like when are we going to be able to get back out there to meet people and stuff. So we started holding these monthly networking events, and we thought, well, we might as work with coaches and consultants. So we're like, how do we make a networking event that will specifically appeal to thought leader types? And what came to our mind is like, well, they're always looking for more visibility. They want to get out there in front of audiences and share their message. So thought, great, we're going to do a networking event that connects podcast hosts with podcast guests. And so, podcast hosts who want really quality experts, and podcasts, they get a chance to meet them first. Podcast guests who were looking for podcasts that would be a good fit for their message. And so we did the first one. We just tapped into each of our networks, and I think got about 30 people there, and it's just kind of steadily grown from there. But here's the interesting thing. I mean, I want to point out, I mentioned I left Internet Business Mastery about 6 years ago, and I kind of did an inventory of what I'd done well and what I thought I could do better. And one thing I identified that I hadn't done as well as I could have is networking. And I'm more naturally an introvert, and like my alone time or to spend time with a couple close knit people that I have a deep relationship with. So it didn't come to me as naturally to be a networker. In fact, a lot of networking didn't feel as natural to me. But the thing that I finally tapped into that helped me be what people refer to me as a connector, which is a great, it feels really good given that I come from a place that I didn't consider myself a networker at all, was that what, if I focus on actually getting to know them and then just focus on the ones I really vibe with. It's like, what? I mean, as an introvert, I'm very naturally, I don't know if it's as an introvert, but I'm very naturally curious person. I can get curious about people who fascinate me, right? So the reason I bring this up is we started formatting this networking event, not just so you show up and like, here's what I do, and here's what here's who I am, and can you connect me with clients and vice versa, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But we really focused on that. We're going to bring you together and help you get to know each other, even in a small amount of time. So you can like walk away going like, oh, there was 3 or 4 people I really vibed with, and I'd love to follow up with. And then networking is so much easier when you focus on the people you're like, what, I'd really enjoy to have another chat with them. So fast forward a couple of years, and this is still going. And in fact, it's become it really helps with my networking efforts and connecting even with new clients and new opportunities, because as I'm out there on LinkedIn connecting with people, or when I go to somebody's mastermind and present to 20 people, or when I even when I speak at a conference or something, I have this gift to offer. It's free, but over and over again, people come to it, they're like, I got so much value, and then they come back again and they come back again. And it feels really good as you're starting a relationship. So rather than bumping into someone at a conference or on LinkedIn and going like, hey, it was great meeting you, let's keep in touch, and then 2 years go by without saying anything else to each other, it's like I can follow up after that mastermind, after that conference, after that, and go, hey, Susie or whoever, I've got this thing that I think would offer value to you. I do these networking things every month and connect you with podcasters. Would that interest you? And a lot of things people are like, yeah, that'd be great. And they come and they get value. And that helps me to start getting to know people. And through that, it expands and deepens my network. I'm always also connecting more easily with opportunities, because people, they have that appreciation for I guess for having been the connector that brought them together and helped them meet some people and land some podcasts. So then they come back to me, they're like, hey Jason, I'd love to help you out, I've got this podcast I think you'd be a great fit for, or here's this person I want to introduce you to, or so it's just like this nice karmic circle by organizing this thing that gives people value freely on a monthly basis. So yeah, we finally named it Generous Entrepreneurs in Media. Right now we're focused on podcasts, but we can see it focusing on putting, connecting experts with video makers, with big publications, whatever, right? So there are opportunities to expand it, but it's a community. We see it as a community of like-minded people who are showing up to be generous with each other, to meet each other in an authentic way. And then sure, hopefully some cool business stuff comes out of it down the road too. But it all starts with just like some genuine connection between people. So it's become a key practice of my business to do those events, follow up with people. And then some of those people end up becoming clients and stuff as well. So it's been really rewarding.
I met Judy Kane through Gems.
Oh, nice.
Judy,
Yeah.
yeah, and Judy and I are collaborating with each other on my current, or I'm sorry, my next mastermind. I'm going to offer her service to my client, my mastermind participants at the beginning, so that they have that. Judy Kane is a mindset alignment coach.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to have a session with Judy before they start the mastermind. So their alignment is perfect so that they're ready to receive whatever the mastermind has to offer them. Yeah. So I met her through Gems. It was perfect.
I love that. I love hearing that. And see, that's not a podcast interview. It's just another collaboration that came out of it, which it's like all kinds of cool things can come out of a community like that.
Well, we did an interview too. We did an interview too.
Awesome. That's cool.
So back to the beginning question, I told you that a lot of people ask me, well, how do you do a podcast? One of the answers that I started giving was, you don't want to do a podcast first. You want to be a guest on podcasts first.
Okay,
and here are some ways that you can become a guest on a podcast. And I point him in the direction of podmatch.com, which is a podcast guest, podcast matcher service, and matchmaker.fm, which is somewhere along the same lines. And then and Gems. So I direct them in those two things. And I say, you try being a guest on other people's podcasts first. And if you enjoy that experience, then you can think about doing your own podcast. But it's so much easier to be a guest, and you get just the same value for the content out of the time that you spent, right? Because if you're a great guest, you're going to take the content, the podcast that you were on, and you're going to promote, hey, I was on so-and-so podcast. Here it is. Have a listen. And it gives you a third-party validation because somebody thought enough of you to be a guest on their show. And, so you can use the content. If you're just wanting to do a podcast to create content, I think it's a better idea to guest on other people's shows, because you're creating the content that way. Unless you want to be a podcaster because you genuinely want to do a pod. I mean, the reason why I have been doing this since 2014 is because I really enjoy having these conversations with people like Jason about things that and learning new things, and then sharing as I learn those new things that I'm learning with an audience of people who want to learn the same thing. I love that. I love that. And again, if the only thing I did was podcasting, I would be happy as peaches.
That's fantastic. And I just want to underscore one little thing you said there. You refer people to the Gem Network, right? We've now reached a point where as many people come into our events, or as many or more people come into our events because others have invited them, as Michael and I invite people. And so it's really snowballed and taken on a life of its own. And that's amazing. Like, that's my brand look, if people show up to a quality networking event, see the kind of people that are brought there, and I'm one of the ones that's organizing it. I mean, look, that just necessarily is going to strengthen my brand authority, and like I said, so and other people are sharing it for me. You don't necessarily get that with like, hey, I mean, sometimes you do, right? But it's a lot less likely people are like, you got to go download this lead magnet, right? Sometimes that happens, but not nearly as much as like every day. I think there are people going like, you got to go check out these Gem networking events because they're good. And so that's been really amazing.
And it's basically speed networking. It's speed networking for podcasters and podcast hosts or podcast guests. It's a lot of fun. I think what you put people in groups of 4. Breakout rooms of 4.
So we do breakout rooms where you get put, and we try to come up with thoughtful questions that help you get to know people beyond just what do you do, where do you live, those kinds of things. And and we're always like testing and playing around. Like, it's evolved into what it is and continues to evolve. But I share all of this to say, like, look, anybody out there, could create an experience like this. Maybe it's networking. Maybe it's a weekly discussion group. There's a weekly discussion group that I go to from time to time that I find a lot of value in, and I meet people there all the time. And I'm very grateful to the person that organizes that and have helped him out with things as well. Maybe it's it could be a free class that you offer specifically for types of influencers you're trying to reach. But I call this connection platform. We know content platform is important when you're an expert, like you create content and put it out there through whatever channels fit best for you. Connection platform is creating a place that you bring people into, into the basically to experience who you are and what you do and the kinds of people you bring together in some way that then, people are going to be that much more likely than to, again, bring you opportunities, remember who you are, and potentially do business with you in some way.
Yeah. And I think it's a lot more fun.
Yeah,
It's a lot
totally.
more fun. And again, I was introduced to gems through a mutual person,
Yeah.
through Robbie.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
I didn't even know you. I didn't even know who you were.
Yeah. And here
However,
we are. I'm on your
however,
podcast and
Mike Roderick, I did know. So I just didn't know you. Okay. Well, we need to wrap up. I can't believe it. This has been so much fun. And I love it when I learn during these podcast interviews, and I learned today.
oh, good.
So I do hope that you can share, because we've already talked about a lot of tools, but I'm hoping you can share your favorite marketing tool, tip, or technique.
Favorite marketing tool, tip, or technique? Well, I think I've been doing it, and that is this connection platform stuff. And I have been teaching my clients it a lot. I very, very quick example. I had a client who was new in her space. She is in a space called somatics. She works with people who might be working through trauma and stuff like that. And she didn't have much of a following. Well, we set up an experience that then she went through Instagram and started different therapists and practitioners and nutritionists, all the kinds of people that work with the same type of people she wants to work with. And we started inviting them into this connection platform experience. And then they started going like, oh, okay, yeah, we see what you're doing. This is really cool. This is good. How about we do a joint live on Instagram together? How about you come and speak to one of my group coaching courses about what it is that you do? Oh, I actually have a client who should be working with you. I'm going to refer them over, right? So that's one of my favorite things right now is creating an experience that then you can offer a gift to people when you're meeting them at conferences, when you're meeting them through social media, whatever, and go like, hey, I've got this thing I think that will really benefit what you're doing. You want to check it out.
I love that answer, because I completely agree with you. That's my favorite marketing tip or, or technique is also to create experiences for people and to offer them from the heart and not for money, because
Right.
you'll make the money. Just offer it from your heart. Okay. So is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to talk about?
Well, something this is a whole other episode we could do, but what I'll just mention this is another thing that's very meaningful to me is mental health awareness. Anxiety has been, and even depression at times has been a part of my own journey. And for many years, I had a platform and didn't tell anybody that I struggled with those things because I didn't want them to, to stigmatize me or judge me or whatever, right? And the reason I bring that up is just to say, like, there are a lot of entrepreneurs and really successful people out there who struggle with mental health. I mean, a lot of people in the general public, but entrepreneurs at a higher rate than average struggle with anxiety, depression, ADHD, addiction, things like that, right? We don't have time to go into it, but I just bring that up quickly to say, like, look, it's something that needs to be normalized. There are a lot of great tools out there to help with it today. And it's just something else that's really meaningful to me. So it's another thing that I often try to talk about when I have a chance and offer resources on and things like that. So if that's something that's important to people as well, it's another thing you can find in my content and stuff. So, it's a quick aside, but an important one. And that is like, yeah, if you're struggling with mental health, like we need to talk about it. It needs to be something that's like, yeah, this is something that a lot of people struggle with, and there are a lot of great resources, and there's nothing wrong with getting support.
Exactly. Everybody always talks about how happy-go-lucky I am, but I'm living with metastatic breast cancer, for Pete's sake. There's
Yeah,
times
I
when
mean it's going to take a toll, not just physically, right? So
yeah.
at times,
So right after we moved here, I started getting very angry. I was just angry. I was pissed off about everything. And
sure.
so, I got a little medical help with that, for about a year. I can't remember what the drug was, but for about a year, I took something that helped take the edge off. And, about a year into it, I felt a lot better. So I weaned myself off the drug and I don't
That's
need it
great.
anymore. But,
Yeah.
but I was miserable and I was miserable to be around. And so I did something about it, you
Yeah.
know? Um, and so do something about it because
Yeah.
you don't want
Talk
to be
to a doctor,
miserable.
talk to a therapist, talk
Yeah.
to a psychiatrist, talk to a
Mhm.
coach, somebody, a coach,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Um, and it's, there's a stigma in the United States about mental health, but there shouldn't be because so many
Mm.
people have, I mean, and it's anything from anxiety to, full on schizophrenia. I mean, all of that exists. And everybody has something wrong with us on some level. Nobody's perfect. And
Mhm.
it's okay to ask for help. I
Because we've all
completely.
got trauma just from life in
Yeah,
general, right? Like,
exactly.
and
Well, and from living in America, for Pete's sake, you know.
that has its own trauma, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has its own drama. When you were talking earlier, I was going to mention and I didn't. So I want to go back just a little bit. You were talking about how it's difficult for you to network. I found that it's easier for me because you're not going to believe this because I don't present as this type of person, but I'm extremely introverted as well.
Yeah.
So in order for me to push myself to get out, to leave the house and go do something, I have to pay for it.
Right.
So, if I want to go to an exercise class, I need to pay for it so that I can go. So a free exercise class isn't going to work for me. I got to pay for that one because once I've paid for it, then I'm like, I paid for this. I got to go. So I only network on a consistent basis with in networking groups that I have to pay for. Right.
Ah,
And then because then I go and I go. Now I love gems, but I didn't pay for it. So
right.
even though I've put it on my calendar, I haven't been back. Now, granted, two times I couldn't go because I had conflicts, but I haven't gone back because I didn't pay for it. I'm not telling you to charge.
Interesting. Yeah.
I'm just saying
Well,
there's just,
I mean, that's an interesting thought. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it's free, but we have thought about like if there ever is a paid or premium part of this, what might that look like? But I mean, there are now. I've gone from 6 years ago being someone who didn't network properly or ever really to now, I pay for probably 3 or 4 different quality communities, and I'm always trying new ones. I just signed up for a new one this week. And so yeah, I hear you. I hear you there.
yeah,
And people might think it's easy to dismiss that and go, well, $40 a month just for a networking thing. It's like, well, I'll tell you, like, you get one client over 3 or 4 months of paying for that. I mean, look,
yeah,
you've more than paid for your membership, even if you got one a year
yeah.
from paying $40 or $100 or $20. I mean, there's different ones, different price points I'm a part of. So
Well, we're all in
it's
business and
worthwhile. It's worthwhile.
it's a business expense. It's a networking is an advertising expense. It's part of your marketing
Yeah.
budget,
Right.
and so my husband and I we started an online custom furniture business in 1999 when the only way people got online was America Online. Remember
Right.
that? You've got mail. So
Uh-huh.
we advertised in we advertised in one magazine. It was a niche magazine for country gift shops. It was called Country Business Magazine. And it catered to people who owned country gift shops because we made country style
Interesting.
furniture.
Yeah.
And at some point we didn't need to advertise anymore. So I shifted that $750 budget that we had to advertise in that magazine, which is cheap advertising for magazines. That's super cheap.
Hmm.
I shifted that to things like networking and sending thank you cards and gifts, right?
Ah,
So I shifted that money. So because you still need to pay for marketing, social media may, you think it's free, but if you get better results when you pay for something. Um, so yeah, do all the free stuff that you can, but also remember that sometimes you got to pay.
yeah.
Anyway, we just totally went down a different well. All right, so
Hopefully it's all valuable. I think these are all great topics.
they are. All right. I hate this part of the episode because it's the end, but I also love this part of the episode because it's so meaningful. So share your moment of gratitude. For whom or what are you most grateful?
Um, Today I'm feeling really grateful for my daughter. She's 10 years old, going on 11 here soon, just started 5th grade. And I'm grateful for the fact she just brings me a lot of joy, but I also I learn a lot from her. I take her out rollerblading and she fell down the other day. Or like, no, as we were headed out the door with her rollerblade, she's like, I wonder where I'll fall down today. I'm like, what a great philosophy on life. So just like little things like that. And, kids are just so, anyway, so that's who I'm grateful for today is my daughter, the joy and the lessons and the sense of purpose that I get from that.
Thanks for joining us this week for Gratitude Geek, the relationship marketing podcast, helping micropreneurs find your micro influencer magic. Your time is valuable, and I am ever so grateful that you chose to spend your time with us today. Be sure to check the show notes at gratitudegeek.com, episode 140, for links to all the groovy resources mentioned today, and of course, to connect with Jason Van Orden. And while you're there, why not subscribe to the show on Audible, iTunes, Stitcher, or any of your favorite podcast players. Our theme music is track 14 by Rev Brock and Solily. I've been your host, Candice Rodardi. Join me on my mission to spread gratitude, sow seeds of appreciation, and harvest a bounty of generosity and kindness. Stay groovy, my friends.
I know we can make it easier than they can. We can make it better than before. I know we can make it easier than they can. We can make it better than before. Some things just can't be ignored.
Stay groovy, my friends.